generator industry, to me, is the hot button right now in the home building industry. A lot of builders don't want to mess with it. A lot of builders are starting to open up their eyes. It's going to be as common as a hot water heater. You're going to have to supply it whether you want to or not.
When you look at a generator, it's a power plant. You have natural gas or propane with electricity in a box that can produce voltage and carbon monoxide, and it's a dangerous piece of equipment. I mean, it could be. And that's why there's so many rules regarding generators. There's so many codes, fire codes, the list goes on and on. The code book just added a few years ago. There's a whole section there now. It's getting more complicated, but it can be dangerous, and you want to make sure it's done right.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Your Project Shepherd Construction Podcast. My name is Curtis Lawson, your host as usual. And today we're going to be talking about something that I think everyone here in our market, which is Houston, Texas, is interested in, and that's home backup generators. And my guests today to talk about that with US Power Pros are Brian Marshall and Tad Horsley. They are a local vendor and installer here in the Houston area. They're actually up north of Houston in Magnolia area, but they service the whole Houston area. I think that we first met at a GHBA luncheon here a few months back, and Brian and I have been in contact. And I said, you know what, I've always wanted to do an episode on the podcast about generators. And he's a great talker, as you'll see, and he has the knowledge to back it up too. He's not just a talker. So I said, hey, let's do a podcast. So I'm happy to welcome Brian and Ted to the podcast today. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thanks for having us, Curtis.
Yep, thanks for having us, Curtis.
So when people call you guys, what are the main things that they're interested in protecting their home against? I mean, I mentioned hurricane readiness. Is that the big thing that you have people asking you about?
Well, that's what comes to mind first. Is hurricane, summertime, you have no AC. That's what people first think about. A few years ago, we had that big freeze in the area, which is very unusual. Even last year, we had snow. And so now that's come into play where people are thinking about heat, their water running so the pipes don't burst. And as the future goes and Houston and Texas grows, we're going to start seeing more problems with our grid. And that's being definitely talked about in power companies and on the national level because of the fast growth Texas has. And it's just going to bring more brownouts and blackouts. But yeah, the first thing is AC comfort. And people don't think about the safety and security. We had a customer last year that their house got broke into, and the kids got held at gunpoint because they didn't have their alarm and lights. And the homeowner bought a generator, so that way he can have his alarm system. Mm-hmm. I mean, those type of things are very real. And then you have your medical side of things, keeping your medication cool and in the refrigerator and things like that people don't always think about.
Yeah.
And I think you might be forgetting two very important things, and that is food.
Mm-hmm.
Refrigerators, freezers, and then the most important thing is keeping mama happy.
Absolutely.
Very important.
Well, those of us who like to hunt, can have a pretty good bit of money tied up in all the meat sitting in their freezer, right? And
absolutely.
Man, I remember the first time when I moved back to Houston in like 2002 or whatever. I moved back here in 2000, but 2002-ish was when the first hurricane that came through after I moved back, and I had just gone on a hunting trip, and I had 2 freezers full of meat, and I didn't have a generator. I didn't have any way to save that stuff, and I ended up throwing away, a lot of money and a lot of memories worth of meat there.
and the other thing a lot of people I think overlook is they say, okay, well, I lost X amount of dollars of meat, but what about the money you spent putting the trips together, putting in taking care of the feeders, paying for the lease, going to Africa to hunt for the wild boar. All of these things add up. You literally could lose a lot of money. So I do get a lot of that. I get a lot of people concerned about food, and then more recently, Tesla car chargers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is a big issue, especially in the city of Houston, which brings about its own array of issues and problems dependent upon a client's budget. They pull a lot of power.
For sure. Yeah, that's something that we don't think about is people who are buying electric cars or own electric cars, the grid's down for a week.
Yeah.
How are they going to get around? I mean, I guess they can maybe drive out to Buc-ee's or whatever and plug it in and sit there and get some beaver nuggets while they wait for it to charge.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big issue. It's a very big issue, and it's one that we have to address delicately, because those chargers usually will throw us into liquid cooled units, doubling costs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or we block them out.
Yeah, because those things are like 50, 60 amp breakers sometimes for those chargers, aren't they?
Most of them I see are double pole 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, they're 50 to 60s, and we allow for that with the generator. We plan for that. We just sometimes have to control that load or other loads to make sure the smaller generators will operate efficiently, because that's the last thing you want is you can't have your car or your garage door for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of planning out, what those loads are that you want to back up as part of the equation. You got to factor in, cooking, refrigeration, possibly car chargers. I mean, obviously you can back up the whole house if you want to spend the money on it, right? But it becomes a big cost difference when you kind of hit that break where you go from air cooled to liquid cooled, right?
Well, there's a big difference between those two, but if you plan ahead, and again, the right and legal way to do a generator is doing a load calc. Yeah. So once you do that load calculation, you can see all the loads. Now, there's devices out there called load shed management modules, and if you use those properly, you can stay with a smaller unit, save the money, but just control the loads differently. Maybe not everything run at the same time, but you can run this one, maybe this one afterwards. And that way you can cover the whole house for a lot less money.
And what's imperative, Curtis, is that you do the load calc and you do size that unit accordingly. If you undersize that unit in any way, warranties are void. Yeah. So regardless of the amount of money you've spent, if there's an issue down the road, you're on your own.
We talked about this when we were talking about solar panels and battery storage. It's the same principles, but as far as planning your needs for this, right? But it's very, very rare that a house with a 200 amp or a 300 amp service is actually going to be using all two or 300 amps at the same time, right?
Does.
So, so it's when you're planning these things out, like that you're not. I mean, it would be crazy if you were going to have your heat pump system, your laundry, your refrigeration, all your lights, your car charger, kind of everything running at the same time. So you don't necessarily have to plan on being able to run 200 or 300 amps at the same time.
I would say to you, my unscientific calculation is about 7.5% of the population will have the hurricane party. Yeah. And they'll invite the entire neighborhood and call in the band, and it gets crazy. But to your point, yes, it's very rare that would happen.
Yeah. So. We actually did that when I had all that meat that we were going to have to throw away. We had a block party, and I ended up cooking part of it and just giving it away to people instead of having to throw it away. I was like, well, if we're going to have to lose this meat, let's go ahead and make some of it worthwhile, right?
What's your neighborhood? I'd like to go maybe become a neighbor. Sounds like a good neighbor to me.
And it's funny because the longer the outage is, the needs will change. At first, it's just comfort, refrigeration, make sure that's operational. But as you get going into it, okay, you got dirty dishes, you got dirty laundry, you might need to use your washer and dryer, your dishwasher. First day or two, you might not need those items, but as it goes on, you might want to use those items. Yeah. So you might want to make sure they run.
Absolutely. So again, storm resiliency is kind of the big thing that comes to mind. And Tad, you touched on it a minute ago, but health and safety can be a real issue for some people. And that's the elderly, people who have medical conditions. And you mentioned keeping certain medications refrigerated is important. People with young children. I mean, extreme heat, extreme cold can create these health and safety situations. And I think people are more aware of that, and they're really wanting to plan to protect themselves against these kinds of issues. And let's face it, in the summer in Houston, it's not just those people; it's everybody is concerned about health and safety too. I mean, you get 100 degrees outside, it can be hotter inside the house, no air moving. So it's not just an elderly or a medical issue. It's everyone.
Well, even people with pools. even in the summer. If you're out too long, now you got to retreat that, which is another added expense. Now in the winter, if those pipes freeze and you don't have water flowing through there, you got busted pipes. Now there's another a very expensive cost. So there's a lot of things that happen when you lose power.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other issue that I wanted to touch on, and this is something that we've touched on with some other guests on the podcast in the past, and that's talking about the resiliency of our structures and how conditions can affect what happens with our actual homes themselves, with the actual structure. So it's always really eye-opening to me after a big outage event, weather event, when I go in and see what's happened to some structures that haven't had backup power, that have had these big temperature fluctuations. You can get a lot of mold growth quickly. The inside of the house gets really hot and humid. You can have mold growth. Your floors and your woodworking can swell, expand and contract. Cabinet doors, interior doors don't close. Wood products are warping. But then even on the cold side, that can happen too. I mean, you can have frozen pipes, like you mentioned, material shrinkage, caulk joints popping, all kinds of stuff that can happen to your structures, when that temperature is not maintained. And not just temperature, but temperature and humidity. So,
well, in Texas, almost everything runs through the attic. And if you ever want to know how the temperature affects your attic, go up there during the summer or during the winter. It's either very cold or very hot. So you have your plumbing, your electrical, your gas, your furnaces, your hot water heaters. Most of that's in the attic in Texas. So that's why it gets so drastically affected up there.
The main reason that I actually wanted to talk to you guys was when Brian and I met at the GHBA luncheon. One of the things he talked to me about was that he was really passionate about making sure that people are taken care of, making sure things are done the right way. And that's one of the big reasons that we have this podcast is to teach people the right way to do things, to help people make the right decisions when they're purchasing, whether it's a product, hiring a builder or whatever. So Brian mentioned to me that he was really passionate about making sure people are, number one, buying the right product for their needs, but then also getting the right job done. So talk to me real quick about...
You want me to preach, don't you?
I want you to preach, yes. You have the preacher's voice. I want you to preach.
Well, what's funny about that, when Brian came to work with us, it wasn't as important to him as it has been. Am I correct in that, Brian? He's learned to do the job right and to make sure the customer is protected with easements and calculations and sizing. And boy, he's been a big advocate lately. He's promoting this all over everywhere.
Well, I came from a sales and marketing background that goes back to the early '90s, telling you my age. I got into the generator business kind of by accident, as many people had little career changes during the pandemic, and I kind of fell into it by accident, and it was only going to be temporary until the previous industry got back on its feet. But what I found when I got into the industry is that I saw it as something, into the generator industry, to me, is the hot button right now in the home building industry. A lot of builders don't want to mess with it. A lot of builders are starting to open up their eyes and see, as I see it, that it's going to be a mandatory appliance within the next 5 years. It's going to be as common as a hot water heater. You're going to have to supply it whether you want to or not. Now, what is happening, there are some that are taking that idea and moving forward with it, but they have no plan. And they're allowing anybody and everybody to do the installations. In many cases, they're just allowing the trades to do the installation. I can't begin to tell you how many times we've walked up onto a job, and Tad will tell you, he's going to send his service techs out, and if there is an issue with placement that could cause harm to that family on the interior of that home, we're walking away from it. When I went to work for Tad, one of the things that really impressed me, and one of the reasons I'm still here today, is because I finally found an advocate that I think feels the same as I do, and that is that, and we get it a lot, where home builders and or individual clients will want us to place a unit here. I can't place it here, but I want you to understand why, and then I explain the codes to them and the possibility of having harm to their family. Not waking up on a Saturday morning is a bad thing. So I've walked away. Tad has done the same. We'll walk away from a job before we'll improperly install it. Why? Because that gentleman wants to go to bed at night and sleep well, as do I. We're in agreement in that. I didn't always have those advocates prior to this. So now I've got it. I feel like I'm on a mission. I'll give you an example. We walked up on a job. We got a call from a young lady out in Bryan, Texas, a single mom with a child, and just a typical track home. Not a very wealthy woman by any stretch of the imagination. She says, my generator's not working, and I need you to fix it. And I walk up and I look, and the first thing I notice is they've tapped the gas through the wall into the gas oven. They had it set in a 5-foot space where there's no way that my techs can even come out and work on it. It's breaking all the codes there. And by the way, it's sitting about 1.5 feet from the baby's window. And I, unfortunately, with sad eyes, had to go to her and say, I can't fix this thing. Why are you calling us? Why don't you call the entity that installed this product? And she said, well, he's out of business, which means he probably never really was in business. But I'll bet he was, what do you think, Tad? A couple of $1,000s cheaper than us, probably?
Could be.
Yeah, something like that. So now I'm having to inform this individual that we're going to have to, because we got to pull the trades out. We've got to redo this whole thing. Everything she paid for in the set is null and void. Now we've got to pick it up. We've got to move it to the back of the yard. I go to Tad, and this man said, well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do it at cost. And I knew right there I was dealing with a good guy, the kind of guy that I can work with. So it is, in fact, something that's going to be mandatory, whether the builders or anyone else likes it or not. It has to be done right. And the way we do that is that you hire a legitimate company who has integrity, a legitimate company that's not going to go out and place this thing in an improper setting that's going to cause harm. Because if we cause harm, let's forget about the morality of it all. Let's just say we go out and we misplace it on our behalf. That's why we started the Homebuilders program. And something bad goes astray, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get sued. I'm going to get sued. They're suing the manufacturer. Everybody's getting sued. We don't want that to happen. Our objective is to not only protect the client, but it's to protect the home builder. And what's happening right now, I'm not saying it's happening across the board, but we do a lot of work for a lot of home builders, and that's my job. I call on a lot of home builders. And what's happening right now is many of the home builders are letting their trades do the work. And I'm sure they're wonderful electricians, and I'm sure they're wonderful plumbers. I'm not debating that in any way, but it poses the question, would you hire a painter to do your electrical work? Would you hire a plumber to do your cabinet work? Hire a generator company. You're going to be protected. Ted, I mean, I'm kind of rambling here. I know that
Well, one of the things that is really important on installing a generator, number one thing is location. And unfortunately, a lot of people, builders, homeowners, well, I want the generator here. They want it out of sight, but they might have an easement there. Well, you can't put it in an easement. You're not supposed to be in there at all. And which is really funny in the cities, the AC condenser, you see them all the time in the easements. I don't know why the cities look at them so much different than they do a generator, but they do. It's just totally different appliance. So we can't be in the easement, it can void your warranty. It can be more expensive. CenterPoint says you got to move that, or the utility company says you're in our easement, move it. And you're starting to see that. And in the county, like I was telling you earlier, Curtis, there are no inspections. So I recommend anybody that's in this trade, get a third-party inspector. I really recommend it. We recommend some because you just can't let people run wild. And there's so many people that want to cut costs, because profit's king. We all got to make a profit, stay in business. So some companies are willing to decrease the quality of the install to make a little bit more money, which is never a good idea, especially when you're dealing with when you look at a generator, it's a power plant. You have natural gas or propane with electricity in a box that can produce voltage and carbon monoxide, and it's a dangerous piece of equipment. It could be. And that's why there's so many rules regarding generators. There's so many codes, fire codes, the list goes on and on. The code book just added a few years ago. There's a whole section there now. It's getting more complicated, but it can be dangerous, and you want to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
People's lives are at risk.
It's actually probably the most dangerous piece of equipment on people's property as far as a fixture, right? Like you said, it's got electrical, it's got natural gas or propane. It's tied into the electrical grid. If it's not done properly, it could backfeed into the grid and cause problems. I mean, there's so that one box in your yard is tied into so many things, and it has the potential to cause so many different problems if it's not done properly.
And down the road, after you pay somebody to put it in, the last thing you ever want to have happen, a year down the road, 2 years down the road, something happens to the generator. You got to get it work done. Well, then the manufacturer says, well, this was installed wrong. We're going to void your warranty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting more common today than it has been in the last few years. Manufacturers are getting more strict on the installers, which is a great thing. The cities are getting better at inspecting these. They're getting more knowledgeable. But in the county, again, I would recommend getting a third-party inspection and hire a very reputable company.
Right. Your life depends on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about that generator at the lady's house in Bryan being near the baby's window, and I know the issue there, but just to kind of state it for people who are listening who may not be thinking about this or experiencing this, you've got this appliance that's with an engine and is producing carbon monoxide, and that's right next to your child's window, and so that's the issue there. It's a carbon monoxide issue. It could also be a fire issue if that thing's too close to combustibles or whatever. So having that away from a window in your home is important.
And the manufacturers are good, and again, those are changing all the time. The codes are on that, and it's up to the installer too. I mean, we learned after Burl because of it was during the hottest time of year. There was no air movement, so there were some houses that that was a big issue in the Houston market, carbon monoxide. Well, there were some things that happened that we've learned as a company, and now we try to avoid. You don't want to aim it into a corner of a house, or you got to be 10 feet away, or just things like that. That comes from experience, and some of these other companies that are new don't have that experience. They're just out throwing it in. So again, reputable companies is important.
And to your point, Curtis, there's nothing will make a client more angry than for us to come out and try to fix a unit a year later and go, well, we'll fix it. But before we do, we got to charge $2,500 to move it over 6 inches or 12 inches. It sounds like not a big deal, but it is a warranty void. It's a warranty void, and quite frankly, it makes me sleep at night knowing that we put it in correctly, that we did not get it up and running, and possibly cause people to go to sleep in that home.
Yeah, well, and moving something 4 inches or 6 inches can be just as much work as moving it 40 feet. You still got to move gas, electrical,
new slab, or add onto the slab.
I mean, people think about that. They're like, oh, you're just moving it 4 inches, no big deal. I'm like, no, it's that's hard pipe gas, that's electrical, that's only the wire's only a certain length. You can't just splice on an extra 6 inches of wire. So it's the domino effect of having to do these things, and that cost just is, again, it's the same whether it's 6 inches or 20 feet.
Yeah. And the electrical or the generator industry is, again, a hot commodity, especially ever since the freeze. And I mean, there are some good dealers out there. Obviously we're one of them. But there are some good guys that are out there. But then after that freeze, it's kind of like the roofing. Every time a hurricane comes in, a bunch of people jump in it. And then they play in it for a year or two and then get out.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal with roofing companies a few years ago, or actually after every hurricane.
So everyone's a roofer.
And that's for a builder or a homeowner. Go with a company that's been around a while. Go with a reputable company.
After every storm, I see ads popping up on Facebook and everywhere. basically someone went out and bought a truckload of generators somewhere across the country, and they're selling them on the cheap.
My favorite was Joe's Tire Shop, Floral Shop, and Generator Installator. That was my favorite.
Yeah, and
by the way, he's out of business.
Yeah, he was never in business to begin with. Let's be honest.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we see these ads pop up, and it's like, get a generator installed for $12,000, on Facebook.
And a lot of people put these in. A lot of people can put them in. But again, after it's done, they walk away. They're not there to service it, take care of it over time. And so they're not really standing behind the product. And in this industry, again, it's a complicated piece of machinery. It's a lot of money you're spending. And they're made to last 10, 15 years if they're properly taken care of. Right. So it doesn't go just to the installation. It goes well beyond that. Just like a car, you don't just not change your oil or put air in your tires. You got to maintain it, do preventive maintenance. Same thing with a generator. You have to take care of it. And if you do, it should last you a good long time.
And if I may add to that, one of the issues that we see a lot of with these startup companies, not all of them, of course, but a vast majority of them will go out and they'll just undersell. They'll just sell the smaller unit, because why? Because it makes their bid come in $1,000, $2,000 cheaper than ours.
That's what they bought 40 of on a truck somewhere in Ohio and drove down
That's
here.
where the load count comes in.
That's where the load count comes in, and more importantly, I mean, look, can you run it on it's calling for a 22. Can you run it on an 18 with load sheds? You bet. But think of these generators just like your car. I mean, that Nissan I pulled up in will run 300,000 miles as long as I do proper maintenance and I'm cruising across the country. Take that same vehicle, run it up a mountain at 100 miles an hour. I don't know what you're going to get out of it. A year, 5 years, I don't know. And that's what's happening right now. And I think some of that, and I've heard people tell me this, that it's done intentionally. Well, burn the unit out that much quicker. They can resell them a new one in 5 years. This is the kind of thing that I'm in this industry and really wanting to change the image of generator installation. I don't think everybody out there is doing it, but there's enough of them doing it to cause me a great deal of concern.
Absolutely.
Well, Curtis, you're in the building trades, and you see it as well as I do. I've been doing this a long time, and we're an electrical contractor. We also wire new construction homes and commercial buildings. And, you look at one price to the next price, and there can be a pretty good sizable difference there, but what's the quality difference? And, a lot of times the old saying, you get what you pay for. I mean, we're not the most expensive company out there. We try to be on the lower end, but we're not the least expensive either. But there is a quality difference between a reputable company and a non-reputable company. I mean, you see it in the trades all the time, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Same thing with everything that we touch. It's there's a difference. There's a difference between me and the other builders out there.
I mean, even like painters or anything with any trade, there's a difference.
But the biggest part to me is that you're still going to be there in a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, to go back and maintain it for them, be there in case they have a problem with it, stand by your work. I mean, that's the number one thing people are buying outside of a proper installation is they know that you're going to be there.
And it's becoming more and more where you have to have one. I was just talking to a utility broker, and he was telling me the state of Texas is facing a problem in a few years because it's growing. I mean, Texas is one of the number one places everybody wants to move to. Well, the grid, because we're on our own grid, we're not part of the national grid, and he's predicting brownout and blackouts is going to be very common. Which certain parts of this state sees that during the hot times of the year, but from what he's telling me, it's going to be more prevalent. Or we got to get onto the national grid, and it's too late to build a new factory because it takes so long. So this is a appliance that's going to be a must-have.
It's kind of like I-10. They keep building, but it's never big enough.
Exactly. I mean, as you know, the codes are always changing, and they're always adding more and more requirements for us. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a few more years, you have to have some sort of backup, whether it's a gas generator or solar, but some sort of mandated backup for every new home that's built at some point in the future.
I definitely would agree with that.
And I think you would know this better than I do. You're on the home building side, but I get a lot of feedback from home builders. It seems like it's almost a mandatory request, at least with custom home builds. They're almost everybody wants one now.
Absolutely.
Whether they're willing to spend the money on it or not is another story. But in most cases, it's much easier to do it on the front end and, take it and throw it into the loan, pay it.
Absolutely. You throw it into the mortgage on a home, and that's where the builders come in, and the builders are getting better at it. But if they add that into the home, the cost of it's almost nothing over 30 years, for the mortgage.
Well, and on whether it's a $800,000 or $1 million or $2 million price tag, an extra 15, 20 is not that big of a budget item in the grand scheme of things,
and you
really.
get to write off the interest on it anyway. So, it's making more sense on the builder side to start putting that into their home. And again, as you were saying, it's the code and everything's going that way. You're going to have something.
Yeah. I would say that, every house that we've built over the last few years, if we don't put one in, we're at least having the conversation of let's set you up for it. Let's figure out where this thing should be, what's the right place on the property. Let's have a gas line there. Let's basically have everything provisioned for it so that when it comes time that you're ready to spend that money, it's literally just, install it, connect it.
And it's cheaper to do it.
You're good to go. Yeah, the plumber's already there. The electrician's already there. Let's get it provisioned, and then when you're ready to spend the money, you can do it.
You're not digging up your yard. You're
not tearing your landscaping up, and
it's all there. That's the time to do it when you're building.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've started a home builders program some years back, and we're having to work. Probably our biggest obstacle is working with the in between the landscapers, getting in right before, but not coming in and messing up anything that they've done. So, to your point, it's something that I think with you doing what you're doing, it's going to eliminate a lot of headaches.
Well, and with the builders, it's educating the builders as well, because they'll, like you just said, well, we're going to set you up. We're going to pre-wire this, pre-do this. And where we're running into a lot of issues is on the gas side. Because almost every home nowadays needs a gas meter upgrade, which means you have a high pressure line. Well, some cities allow you, some cities don't allow you to run that through the house. So you have to plan that gas line. The electrical is a little bit easier to run through the house, but a few years ago, builders would just tap off a line in the house and just stub out a gas line. Well, that's not going to work. Even though these generators are getting more efficient, they still need a fair amount of fuel to run, and you don't want to starve the house, so you have to do a gas meter upgrade. Well, you don't want that high pressure line right there.
And done improperly down the road, it's going to cost you far more money, because I just left a home. We got to talk about this, by the way. I just left a home. The home builder ran the wrong wire through the house. So it's going to be, and it's a big house. It's up 2-story across. It's probably easily 100 foot, 150 foot. It's going to cost somebody a lot of money.
But a good builder will help the homeowner out and guide them on that and trust their trade. And that's where we come in. That's where Brian comes in. That's why we're members of the GHBA, because we believe in this cause to help educate builders. Buy it from us or not. Obviously, I'd rather you buy it from me. But if we help you get educated and get at the end of the day, we all come down to the customer. Mm-hmm. Maybe I didn't sell the unit. Maybe I can get the maintenance on it later. But if I can help you set up your customer better, everybody's happy.
Yeah, we talk a lot about having a solid team and solid planning up front, and having a good trusted trade partner that does this as part of your team. As a builder, having that is essential, because I want to be able to pick up the phone and call you guys and say, hey, Brian, I got this customer. They're not ready to buy this today, but what should we be putting in place? Based on the size house, what generator are they going to need? What should we set this up for? What size gas line? What size electrical should we be getting in the ground for you?
And you'll be their favorite person down the road if you do that right.
Yeah, because if I give them bad advice and we put in a 3/4 inch gas line and it needs 1.5 inches, well, they're tearing the yard up and they're not happy with me, and that reflects poorly on me. So, having a solid team who's going to help think through these issues, and someone that I can trust is huge.
Well, that's what we're here for. I've been in this trade a long time, and I just believe in doing the job right. First time, being honest, it's not always about money. It's about doing the job right. I always feel if you do the job right, the money will always be there. If you take care of your customers, and I look at builders as our customer, and it's just a win-win. Everybody wins, and that's a great thing.
Well, it's a true partnership, and the partnership that is created protects what's really crucial to note is that it protects everybody. It protects us, protects you. Most importantly, it protects your client, my client. We're all protected. Everything is done accurately. Everything's done the way it's supposed to code, and it's just a win-win, man. There's no problems that we're going to bump into down the road based on that.
And it's funny, Curtis. I've been talking with a lot of manufacturers, and some of them have these small plans. And Brian actually had to research the one for GHBA. But the manufacturers understand the importance of this, and they understand the importance of builders, because you're the first point, and this is getting to be a necessary appliance in the home. So they're coming out with programs and changing, like they have combo meter cans and things like that to attract the builder. And we just met with one of our manufacturers and got a special program, again, because they understand getting the builder to put this in is where it needs to happen. It's the first point. It's easier. It's better for the customer to get it put in at the beginning.
More cost effective.
Everything. It's just better all the way around.
Because look, and this is a question for you, Curtis, as a home builder, because I don't really know the answer to this, but you build a home, and I'm not you personally, but a home builder builds a home. I assume there's lots of warranties that go along with that home build, and then they hire Joe's Floral Shop tire repair and generator installer 6 months after you're out to do the install, and it's all done improperly. How does that reflect on you?
Yeah, I mean, if they come in after we're done and screw something up, that can void their warranty with me.
Right.
If they come in and make a change to the plumbing or electrical system and hook something up the wrong way, that's kind of, fortunately for me, it's off my liability.
Right.
But unfortunately for the homeowner, that can affect their warranty.
Sure.
Or at least as far as the changes that they made go. So it's really important. If they want to do a generator, let's plan it. Let's get it all kind of at least set up front, if not install it. That way you can make sure that all the warranties are being maintained. Your builder's warranty, on plumbing, electrical, structural, and the warranty with the manufacturer on the equipment they're buying too.
And if I may add, I'm sorry, Ted, if I may add, I think this is important. More importantly, it's protecting your reputation. Even if a home builder or if at that stage you're really not liable from a legal perspective, they're going to run around and they're going to holler at all of us. Oh, yeah. So it's about reputation. I'm sorry, Ted, I cut you.
That's right. I've seen this industry change. Like hospitals have to have them. Necessitates requirement. Again, for medical reasons, safety, medication. But as these years have gone by, I've been seeing it change. And now you see almost, I would say 80 to 90% of every home builder at the very start of the home and the project with the homeowner, this topic comes up. Are you planning on this? That's what your industry is doing that. And it's really driving it, and which is a great thing because, like I said, you're seeing the manufacturers see it as well. So the product's changing, the offer to the builders changing to make it more affordable to the homeowner. So it's a win-win again all the way around.
Yeah. To kind of wrap things up, let's just, and we touched on all this, but let's just rattle off the things that things that builders and generator companies should be looking at when we are deciding, planning a generator, planning the placement and the install. So,
I want to say two things, and I'll let Brian take it from here. But number one is placement. That is the number one most important thing you can do is properly placing the generator on the property to meet all the rules and codes. Number two, I would say doing a proper load count to make sure you have the right size. Brian, you can take it.
Yeah,
from
no, placement, and when you're talking placement, you're just talking about making sure that you adhere to all the mandatory codes, 5 foot from windows, any openings at all. That includes dryer vents, that includes drain pipes, that includes drain pipes that are coming from the AC evaporator, coming from the hot water heater. You need to have 3 foot clearance in the front. If you got 5 foot between a house and a fence, it's not going to work. You can't put it there. You got to go to the backyard. You see it every day. They're placing them in those little tight spots, but they're improper. And what's really interesting, we've had numerous issues. The primary issue with that is allowing the tech to be able to get in there and physically work on that safely. By the way, we're protecting the tech. He's got his hands, or she's got her hands up inside this unit, as you stated. We're talking high voltage. They don't need to be squeezed in. They need to have ample room, and of course it's part of the electrical code. But placement is so important, and these are where the issues are happening primarily. Load calcs. You want to undersize a unit. You want to buy a Volkswagen to pull a horse trailer. You're certainly free to do that. I wouldn't advise it, however. So make sure you're sized properly. And most importantly, make sure that you're dealing with somebody that you think has your best interest at heart and is just not trying to make the money and turn the corner.
The other thing that I see a lot, especially in the county, is the electrical and gas pipe not deep enough. Sometimes I see it a lot in the same ditch, which we try not to. We try to always keep it 12 inches apart, which some of the cities are changing that code to make it 12 inches apart. But you see it all the time, not deep enough.
What's the minimum depth? 18?
18 inches.
Yeah.
And we see it. I've seen it 6 inches, 10 inches. And what really freaks me out is when I see the gas and electric in the same ditch, 10 foot down or 10 inches down, and you just think about someone's going to go out and plant a bush with a shovel. And you got your gas and electric right there. I mean, we try not to, but obviously we hit lines all the time. We call 811, and that's the other thing you want to make sure you do, 811 before you dig. Yeah. That's a law.
811 is not catching the wire the electrician ran from the house to the generator, though. They're catching the utility lines. Right. So there's only so much information they have.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, guys, I think that kind of wraps it up. But thanks a lot for being here to talk to me about generators today.
Well, and I appreciate you having us, Curtis. If anyone has any questions, feel free to give me a call. If I don't know the answer, I'll find out. But I'm wide open at any time. But we have an entire team that I can lean on heavily, and of course, I don't think he mentioned Tad is our master electrician, so I bother him far more than he probably cares when it comes to electrical questions. So we got one to talk about as soon as we get out of here.
Well, if he's the owner of the company, he doesn't mind talking about
Agreed.
it because that means he's making a sale, hopefully.
Agreed.
Hopefully.
But thank you for having us, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
It,
yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I've met Brian before. Today's my first time meeting Tad, so I'm glad to meet you and glad to have you on the show here today. And Brian, thanks for helping me put it together. And look forward to seeing you again at our next GHBA luncheon, which is actually this Thursday. I'm not sure if you're coming, but hopefully see you there.
This is why I believe in the GHBA. Okay, and this is why I've been a part of it for quite a long time, and we do get involved. Because there is a cause there. Every builder I've ever met through the GHBA cares. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time being there. I mean, it's different being a member, but being an active member is what I see is important. Because just like yourself, you care. Okay, you're not just a member to put it on the door saying, "Hey, I'm a member of the GHBA." You're active in it, and same thing with us. And I know there's other trades. I used to do home theater at one point, and I've seen all sorts of trades at the GHBA meetings. So it's an important place.
And if you're not part of the GHBA, you should be. It's just a wealth of knowledge. I've only been involved a very short period of time, as you know, and I've learned more about the home building industry, just keeping my mouth shut, which is very hard to do, and watching and listening. So.
That's a great testimonial. We're actually doing a episode here. Next week, Francis? Next week we got 3 people from GHBA coming in, and we're just going to talk about membership in the GHBA and how that can benefit you. So we got some extra clips that we can pop in and use on that one too. So thanks for
No problem.
Thanks for the soundbite there. Well, guys, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for being here. And we thank all of you for listening and watching to the Your Project Shepherd podcast. We'll see you next time. Take care.